She thought silence would save her. She was wrong. The moment Lena Carter's hand trembled over the dessert menu, the third time Victor had sent it back because her choice reflected poorly on his taste, she realized something horrifying. She had stopped existing, not dying, worse, disappearing while still breathing. Across the restaurant, a man watched her with eyes that saw everything she'd been trained to hide. Tonight, one of them would shatter her carefully constructed prison. Tonight, she would have to choose between the suffocation she knew and the danger she didn't. This is a story about the woman who forgot she had claws until someone reminded her how to use them. If you want to see how far her choice takes her, stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin where everything fell apart. The restaurant was the kind of place that whispered wealth instead of shouting it. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across white tablecloths. The silverware was heavy enough to feel important in your hand. Every surface gleamed with the quiet arrogance of old money, the kind that didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Lena Carter sat very still in her chair, spine straight, hands folded in her lap like she'd been taught, like she'd learned, like she'd been trained over the past 2 years until perfect posture had become a reflex instead of a choice. Across from her, Victor Hale studied the wine list with the concentrated focus of a surgeon reviewing a patient's chart. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. His suit probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He told her once, casually, as if it didn't matter, that he only wore Tom Ford because anything less sends the wrong message. Lena had stopped asking what message her own clothes were sending. "The 2015 Bordeaux," Victor said without looking up. His voice carried that particular tone of certainty that left no room for discussion. "Though I'm not convinced their cellar is properly temperature controlled. Last time the '09 was nearly oxidized." The sommelier, a thin man with the kind of mustache that required maintenance, nodded with practiced deference. "An excellent choice, Mr. Hale. I'll ensure it's properly decanted." Victor didn't thank him. He never thanked service staff. He said it encouraged familiarity. Lena watched the sommelier retreat, wondering if he noticed the way Victor's fingers drummed against the table. That meant he was irritated about something. She'd learned to read those small signs the way sailors learn to read the sky before a storm. "You're slouching," Victor said quietly. She straightened immediately, muscle memory faster than thought. "Sorry." "Don't apologize, just correct it." He finally looked at her, and his eyes, pale blue, almost colorless, swept over her face with the critical assessment of someone examining a purchase they were considering returning. "And you're wearing the earrings I specifically said don't compliment your complexion." Lena's hand moved toward her ear before she caught herself. "I thought—" "That's the problem, Lena, you thought." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It never did. "We discussed this. Your instincts in these matters aren't refined yet. That's why you have me." The word "yet" hung in the air like a promise that was also a threat. She nodded, didn't argue. Arguing with Victor was like trying to negotiate with a mirror. You only ever got your own reflection thrown back at you, distorted just enough to make you doubt what you'd originally seen. A waiter appeared at their table, young and nervous, probably new. "Good evening. Can I start you with—" "We'll wait for the wine," Victor interrupted without looking at him. "And bring sparkling water, San Pellegrino, not Perrier. I shouldn't have to specify." The waiter stammered an apology and fled. Lena felt something twist in her chest. She used to be the kind of person who made eye contact with waiters, who said please and thank you like they mattered. When had she stopped doing that? When had she started letting Victor speak for both of them like she didn't have a voice of her own? She knew when. She knew exactly when. "I saw Margaret Wellington today," Victor said, adjusting his cufflinks. They were gold. Everything about Victor was either gold or sharp or both. She mentioned that the wife of the Hastings and Rose senior partner will be at the engagement party. Patricia something. You'll need to make a good impression. "Of course," Lena said automatically. "Which means you'll need to be briefed on appropriate conversation topics. Nothing political, nothing controversial. Certainly nothing about that book club you mentioned." He said book club the way someone else might say communicable disease. "These women can smell desperation and insecurity. You'll need to project confidence without arrogance, warmth without familiarity." Lena nodded again. She'd become very good at nodding. I've scheduled you with Catherine for etiquette coaching on Thursday. Don't cancel this time. I didn't cancel last time. I had a migraine, which you could have worked through with proper medication and focus. Victor's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped half a degree. That was worse than yelling. Yelling you could identify. Yelling had edges. This was like being slowly lowered into cold water. The engagement party is in 3 weeks, Lena. 3 weeks. Do you understand how many important people will be evaluating you? Evaluating us? I understand. Do you? He leaned forward slightly. Because sometimes I wonder if you grasp what you're becoming part of. This isn't your mother's book club or your college friends' wine nights. This is a different echelon. My colleagues, my clients, they notice everything. Every word, every gesture, every micro-expression on your face. Lena's hands tightened in her lap, hidden beneath the table where he couldn't see the way her knuckles had gone white. I just want you to be successful, Victor continued, his voice softening into something that might have been affection in another person. In him, it sounded like a threat wrapped in velvet. You have so much potential, Lena. I saw it the moment I met you. But potential means nothing without refinement, without guidance. Without control, Lena thought, and immediately hated herself for thinking it. The wine arrived. Victor performed the tasting ritual with the solemnity of a religious ceremony, swirling, sniffing, sipping, considering. The sommelier waited with the bottle angled at precisely 45 degrees. Acceptable, Victor finally said. The sommelier poured with visible relief. Lena waited for Victor to nod before touching her glass. Another learned behavior. Another small surrender she'd stopped noticing until it had become automatic. To us, Victor said, raising his glass. And to the life we're building. Lena lifted her own glass. The crystal caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. Pretty little prisons of color that disappeared the moment you tried to hold them. To us, she echoed. The wine tasted like ashes in her mouth. She'd met Victor at a charity gala 2 years ago. Back then, she'd been working at a nonprofit, barely making rent, but happy in a way she hadn't known how to value. She'd worn a borrowed dress and cheap shoes that pinched. She'd felt invisible among all those rich people with their casual wealth and their easy confidence. And then Victor had noticed her. You're different, he'd said. You're real. For 6 months, it had been perfect. He'd been attentive, generous, interested in everything she said. He'd listened when she talked about her work, her dreams, her stupid little hopes that seemed so small compared to his world of corporate law and 7-figure deals. He'd made her feel seen. The shift had been so gradual she hadn't noticed it happening. First, it was suggestions about her clothes. Not criticisms, just helpful observations. Then it was introducing her to better restaurants, better wine, better everything. Teaching her to appreciate quality, refinement, class. By the time she realized he wasn't teaching her, he was replacing her, it was too late. She'd already said yes to moving in with him. Yes to quitting her job because, you don't need to work, darling. Let me take care of you. Yes to the engagement ring that felt more like a collar than a promise. And now here she sat, in a restaurant where the napkins probably cost more than her old weekly grocery budget, trying to remember what her own voice used to sound like before she'd learned to modulate it to match Victor's preferences. You're doing it again, Victor said. Lena blinked. What? That vacant expression, like you're somewhere else. He set down his wine glass with careful precision. It's unbecoming, especially in public. I'm just tired. Then drink some water. Sit up straighter. Engage. His smile was back, sharp as a blade. I'm not asking for perfection, Lena. Just presence. Just my soul, she thought. Just everything I used to be. She reached for her water glass, and that's when she saw him. The man was sitting 3 tables away, partially obscured by a decorative column. Dark hair, darker eyes, wearing a suit that made Victor's Tom Ford look like it was trying too hard. He wasn't looking at his companion, an older woman gesturing animatedly about something. He was looking directly at Lena. Not the way men usually looked at women in restaurants like this. Not with assessment or interest or the casual objectification of someone evaluating potential. He was looking at her like he could see straight through the expensive dress and the carefully styled hair and the practiced posture. Like he could see the parts of her she'd buried so deep she'd almost forgotten they existed. And his expression, it wasn't pity. That would have been bearable. It was recognition, like he knew exactly what she was, what she'd become, what she was pretending not to notice about her own life. Lena's breath caught in her throat. The stranger didn't look away, didn't smile, didn't acknowledge the social convention that strangers weren't supposed to stare at each other across expensive restaurants like they were reading each other's entire histories in a single glance. "The scallops are excellent here," Victor was saying. "Though if you're still concerned about your figure, perhaps the sea bass—" "I'll have the scallops," Lena heard herself say. Victor's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "You're certain? Last month you mentioned feeling bloated after shellfish." "I'm certain." Something flickered across Victor's face. Surprise, maybe, or displeasure at this tiny rebellion, this microscopic assertion of preference. But he nodded. "Of course, whatever you'd like." It was such a small thing, so insignificant. One menu choice in a lifetime of surrendered decisions. So why did it feel like she'd just thrown a brick through a window? Lena forced herself to look away from the stranger and focus on her wine. Her heart was doing something irregular in her chest, a rhythm that didn't match the quiet piano music drifting through the restaurant. Dinner arrived in courses. Each played a work of art that Victor analyzed with the same critical eye he applied to everything else. He explained the flavor profiles, the techniques, the proper way to appreciate what they were eating. Lena nodded and chewed and swallowed and tried not to think about how she'd stopped tasting food somewhere along the way. She didn't look at the stranger again. Didn't need to. She could feel his gaze like heat against her skin, constant and unwavering and completely inappropriate. And she hated that some part of her, some buried, suffocated part she'd thought was dead, felt alive under that attention in a way Victor's carefully modulated affection had never managed. "Dessert menu," Victor said, snapping his fingers at a passing waiter. The waiter brought 2 leather-bound menus. Lena opened hers and stared at the elaborate descriptions without reading them. "The creme brulee," Victor decided. "You'll have the fruit plate." Lena's fingers tightened on the menu. "Actually, you had a heavy lunch." It wasn't a question. He tracked her meals the way generals track troop movements. "Fruit will be lighter." This was the moment. This was where she was supposed to nod and smile and agree and let him make another decision for her about her own body, her own hunger, her own desires. This was where Lena Carter, the real Lena, the one who'd existed before Victor started erasing her, was supposed to stay buried. "I'll have the chocolate soufflé," she said quietly. The silence that followed was so complete she could hear the piano player miss a note across the room. Victor set down his menu. His expression didn't change. That was the scariest thing about him. He never had to raise his voice or make a scene. He could communicate infinite displeasure with the subtle tightening of his jaw, the fractional narrowing of his eyes. "The soufflé takes 20 minutes to prepare," he said. "I have a conference call at 9. "Then I guess we'll have to wait." Where had that come from? Where had that voice, steady, calm, completely unapologetic, come from? Victor studied her like she was a stranger. "Are you feeling well?" "I'm fine." "Because this isn't like you." Exactly, Lena thought. This isn't like the person you've been creating. This is like the person I used to be. "I just want dessert," she said. For a long moment, Victor said nothing. Then he smiled, that sharp, dangerous smile that meant she'd be paying for this later in small, subtle ways she wouldn't be able to name or defend against. "Of course," he said. "Whatever you want." But the way he said whatever you want made it clear that wanting things was itself a transgression. The waiter took their order and fled. Victor excused himself to the restroom, and the moment he was gone, Lena felt like she could breathe again. Actually breathe. Not the shallow sips of air she'd been taking all evening. She looked up. The stranger was standing. He said something to his companion. The older woman nodded, smiled, and then he was walking. Not toward the exit, not toward the bar. Toward her table. Lena's heart kicked against her ribs. This was insane. This was inappropriate. This was... He stopped 3 feet away. Up close, he was even more unsettling. Late 30s, maybe. Sharp features that suggested he didn't smile often and didn't care that he didn't. Eyes so dark they were almost black, and looking into them felt like falling. "You don't know me," he said. His voice was low, controlled, with an accent she couldn't quite place. "And I have no right to speak to you. but I'm going to anyway, because in about 30 seconds, your fiancé is going to come back and you're going to fold yourself back into whatever shape he needs you to be, and I can't watch that happen again without saying something. Lena opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The stranger pulled out Victor's empty chair and sat down like he had every right to be there. My name is Adrian Wolf, he said, and I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking I'm insane or dangerous or both. You're thinking you should signal the waiter, call security, make a scene. He leaned forward slightly. But you won't. Because some part of you, the part that just ordered the soufflé instead of the fruit plate, wants to hear what I have to say. Lena found her voice. It came out smaller than she wanted. You need to leave. I will. In a minute. Adrian's eyes held hers with an intensity that should have been frightening, but somehow wasn't. I've been watching you all evening. Don't look at me like that, not like a creep. Like someone who recognizes something familiar, something I've seen before. You don't know anything about me. I know you've apologized 4 times tonight for things that weren't your fault. I know you straightened your posture every time he looked at you. I know you're wearing earrings you don't like because someone told you your own taste wasn't good enough. He tilted his head slightly. And I know that 20 seconds ago, ordering a dessert you actually wanted felt like an act of rebellion, which tells me everything I need to know about your life. The words hit like physical blows. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Who the hell are you? Lena whispered. Someone who made the mistake of loving a man who thought love meant control. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Old pain, carefully managed. It took me 3 years to leave. 3 years of being slowly erased until I barely recognized my own face in the mirror. So yes, I know exactly what I'm looking at when I see you sitting there like you're afraid to take up space at your own table. Lena's throat tightened. You're wrong. Am I? He stood abruptly. Then forget I said anything. Go back to your fruit plate and your etiquette coaching and your life of carefully managed perfection. But if I'm right, if even a single word of what I've said resonates, then you need to understand something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, set it on the table between them. Your cage has a door, Adrian said quietly, and you're the only one with the key. Then he walked away. Just like that. No dramatic exit, no backward glance. He returned to his table, said something to his companion, and they began gathering their things to leave. Lena stared at the business card. Heavy stock, expensive. Just a name, Adrian Wolf, and a phone number. No company, no title. Nothing that explained who he was or why he just detonated a bomb in the middle of her carefully controlled evening. Her hands were shaking. She grabbed the card and shoved it into her purse just as Victor reappeared, his phone in his hand. The Hastings deal is imploding, he said without preamble. I need to make some calls. We'll skip dessert. 6 hours ago, Lena would have nodded, apologized for ordering the soufflé, gathered her coat, and followed him out without a word of protest. But Adrian Wolf's voice was still echoing in her head. Your cage has a door. I'm going to stay, Lena heard herself say. I'll take a car home. Victor stopped moving. Excuse me? I ordered the soufflé. I'm going to eat it. She looked up at him, and something in her expression made him take a step back. You go. Handle your call. I'll be fine. Lena. I'll be fine, Victor. They stared at each other. For the first time in 2 years, Lena didn't look away first. Victor's jaw tightened. We'll discuss this at home. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. He left. Lena sat alone at the table, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone in the restaurant could hear it. The waiter appeared, looking nervous. Your soufflé, miss. It'll be about 15 more minutes. That's perfect, Lena said. Thank you. The waiter blinked at her like she'd just spoken a foreign language. Maybe she had. Maybe thank you and please and I want were foreign languages now. Maybe she'd forgotten them so completely that using them again felt like learning to speak after years of silence. She pulled out her phone, stared at it, put it away, pulled Adrian's business card out of her purse and stared at that instead. Someone who made the mistake of loving a man who thought love meant control. Not a woman, a man. Adrian Wolf had loved a man who'd done to him what Victor was doing to her. And somehow, impossibly, he'd gotten out. How? How did you walk away from someone who'd spent years convincing you that you were nothing without them? That your thoughts were wrong, your instincts flawed, your very existence in need of constant correction and improvement? How did you remember who you were before they started telling you who to be? The souffle arrived, perfect and golden and dusted with powdered sugar. The waiter set it down with a flourish. "Enjoy, miss." Lena picked up her spoon. Her hand was still shaking. She took a bite. It was the most delicious thing she'd ever tasted. Or maybe it just tasted like choice, like the small radical act of deciding something for herself and actually following through. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. Around her, the restaurant continued its quiet symphony of wealth and refinement. Crystal and silver and murmured conversations. People living lives that probably looked perfect from the outside. How many of them were screaming on the inside? How many of them had forgotten they were screaming? Lena finished her dessert. Paid the bill with Victor's credit card. He'd left it for her, of course, because he thought of everything, controlled everything, managed every detail of their shared existence. She left a 40% tip. Then she walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, and for the first time in 2 years, she had absolutely no idea what happened next. It was terrifying. It was the closest thing to freedom she'd felt in so long she'd forgotten what freedom tasted like. Her phone buzzed. A text from Victor. "We need to talk about your behavior tonight. This isn't acceptable." Lena stared at the message. 2 years ago, that text would have sent her into a spiral of anxiety and self-recrimination. She would have spent the entire ride home rehearsing apologies, trying to figure out how to smooth over this tiny rebellion. Now? Now she just felt tired. So tired of being afraid of disappointing someone who was never actually satisfied. So tired of walking on eggshells in her own life. So tired of being slowly, methodically erased. She didn't reply to the text. Instead, she looked at Adrian's business card one more time, memorized the number. Then she put it back in her purse and started walking. The street was quiet, lined with expensive boutiques that were closed for the night. Her heels clicked against the pavement. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear traffic, life, the city continuing to exist whether she was drowning in it or not. "Lena!" She spun around. Adrian Wolfe was standing under a streetlight, his hands in his pockets. His companion was nowhere to be seen. He looked at her with that same unsettling directness, like he could see all the things she was trying desperately to hide. "Are you following me?" Lena demanded. "Yes." The honesty of it caught her off guard. "Why?" "Because I saw the look on your face when your fiancé left." Adrian took a step closer. "And I recognize that look. That's the look of someone deciding whether they're brave enough to save themselves. You don't know me. I know you more than you think." He stopped a few feet away, giving her space. "And I know that right now, you're telling yourself this is all in your head, that you're overreacting, that Victor loves you and he's just trying to help you be better, that if you were stronger, smarter, more confident, you wouldn't feel like you're suffocating." Lena's breath caught. "Stop." "Why? Because I'm right?" Adrian's voice was gentle but unyielding. "You can lie to yourself, Lena. You've been doing it for years, but you can't lie to me. I've lived this. I know what it looks like from the inside." "What do you want from me?" "Nothing." He pulled out his phone, glanced at it, then back at her. "I want nothing from you. I don't know you. After tonight, I'll probably never see you again, but I couldn't walk away without at least trying to tell you the truth." "What truth?" "That you're not crazy. You're not oversensitive. You're not broken or damaged or in need of fixing." Adrian's eyes held hers. "You're being slowly destroyed by someone who's convinced you that destruction is love. And if you don't get out, one day you'll wake up and realize there's nothing left of you to save." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and true, and completely unbearable. Lena felt something crack inside her chest. Not break, not shatter, just crack. A hairline fracture in the wall she'd built around the part of herself that still remembered what it felt like to be whole. "I have to go," she whispered. "I know. I don't need your help." "I know that too." Adrian stepped back, giving her even more space. "But if you change your mind, if you ever need someone who understands, you have my number." He turned to leave. "Wait," Lena heard herself say. Adrian stopped, looked back. "How did you do it?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. How did you leave? For the first time, Adrian smiled. It was sad and knowing and carried the weight of battles fought and barely won. Badly, he said. I left badly, messily, with my heart in pieces, and no idea who I was without him. But I left, and that's what mattered. Then he walked away, disappearing into the shadows between streetlights. Lena stood there for a long time, alone on the empty street, her mind a chaos of thoughts she couldn't organize into anything coherent. Finally, she pulled out her phone and called a car. The ride home was silent. The driver didn't try to make conversation, which was good because Lena didn't have words for what was happening inside her head. Victor's penthouse was dark when she arrived. He was probably still on his conference call, managing the crisis with the same ruthless efficiency he applied to everything else in his life, including her. Lena kicked off her heels in the entryway and walked through the apartment in her bare feet. Everything was exactly as Victor wanted it. Minimalist, expensive, cold. Lots of glass and sharp angles. Nothing soft, nothing warm, nothing that suggested actual people lived here instead of just existing in carefully curated spaces. She found herself in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. Millions of lights stretched into the distance. Millions of lives being lived, some of them happy, some of them broken. Most of them probably somewhere in between. Which one was she? Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Victor. Where are you? Lena looked at the message. Then, very deliberately, she turned off her phone. It was such a small act of defiance. Meaningless, really. He'd just call the landline, or come home, or find some other way to reach her because Victor always found a way to reach her. But for this moment, this tiny, fragile moment, she was unreachable. She pulled Adrian's business card out of her purse one more time, studied the heavy stock, the simple typography, the phone number that might be a lifeline or might be nothing at all. Your cage has a door. The question was whether she was brave enough to open it. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in the guest bedroom. She'd stopped sharing Victor's bed months ago, though neither of them acknowledged it, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sound of his voice through the walls. He was still on calls at 2 a.m, his tone clipped and controlled, even when he was probably furious. She wondered if he was ever anything other than controlled. She wondered if she'd ever been attracted to that control, or if she'd just mistaken it for strength. Around 3, she heard his footsteps in the hallway. They paused outside her door. She held her breath, waiting for the knock that would mean a confrontation she wasn't ready for. But the footsteps moved on. His bedroom door closed with a soft click. Lena exhaled and hated herself for the relief she felt. Morning came gray and cold. She showered, dressed in clothes Victor hadn't picked out, jeans and a sweater she'd shoved to the back of her closet because he said they made her look unpolished, and emerged from the guest room like a soldier heading into battle. Victor was already in the kitchen, perfectly dressed in a charcoal suit, reading something on his tablet while he drank espresso from a cup that probably cost more than most people's dinnerware sets. He looked up when she entered. His expression was carefully neutral. We need to discuss last night, he said. Lena poured herself coffee. Her hands were steadier than she expected. Okay. That behavior was unacceptable. Which behavior? She turned to face him, leaning against the counter. Ordering dessert or eating it? Victor set down his tablet with deliberate precision. Don't be glib. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You embarrassed me in front of the entire restaurant. How did I embarrass you? By making a scene, by countermanding my decisions, by acting like a petulant child instead of my future wife. His voice remained level, but she could see the tension in his jaw. And then turning off your phone so I couldn't reach you? That's not just disrespectful, Lena. That's concerning. I needed space. Space. He repeated the word like it was foreign. From what? From you. The silence that followed was so complete she could hear the espresso machine hissing in the corner. Victor stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously soft. I think you need to be very careful about what you say next. Or what? The words came out before Lena could stop them. You'll what, Victor? Yell at me? You never yell. You'll give me the silent treatment? Make subtle comments about my failures for the next week? Cancel our dinner reservations and make me feel like it's my fault? I have never done anything except try to help you become the best version of yourself. No. Lena set down her coffee cup. You've tried to turn me into someone else entirely. Someone who doesn't exist. Someone I don't even recognize. Victor's expression shifted. Not to anger. That would have been easier. To something that looked almost like concern, but felt like manipulation. You're not yourself right now. I think you should sit down. Have you been taking your vitamins? Sometimes low iron can cause... I'm not sick, Victor. I'm awake. Awake to what? To the fact that I've spent 2 years letting you erase me piece by piece until there's almost nothing left. He moved toward her, and she instinctively stepped back. Something flickered in his eyes when she did that. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. Lena. His voice was gentle now, the way you'd speak to a frightened animal. I love you. Everything I do is because I love you. If I push you to be better, it's because I see your potential. If I guide your choices, it's because I have more experience in these social circles. I'm trying to protect you from making mistakes that could hurt both of us. By deciding what I eat, what I wear, who I talk to. By helping you navigate a world you don't understand yet. I don't want your help anymore. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Victor stared at her. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked genuinely thrown. What are you saying? I don't know yet. Lena's heart was hammering, but her voice stayed steady. But I know I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending I'm okay with the way you treat me. I can't keep making myself smaller so you can feel bigger. That's not what I do. That's exactly what you do. She grabbed her purse from the counter. I'm going out. Where? I don't know. Anywhere that isn't here. Lena, don't. She held up a hand. Don't try to fix this right now. Don't try to explain it away or tell me I'm overreacting or suggest I need therapy or vitamins or whatever excuse you're preparing. Just let me go. She walked past him, half expecting him to grab her arm, to physically stop her. But Victor would never do something so crude, so obvious. His control was subtler than that. This is about that man, isn't it? His voice followed her to the door. The one who approached you at the restaurant. I saw him on the security footage. Lena froze with her hand on the doorknob. You think I wouldn't check? Victor continued. You think I wouldn't notice when a strange man sits at our table the moment I step away? Who is he, Lena? No one. Don't lie to me. She turned to face him. I've never lied to you, Victor. That's the problem. I've been completely honest, and you've used every truth I've ever told you as ammunition to rebuild me into someone else. His name is Adrian Wolf, Victor said, pulling out his phone. I had my assistant look into him. He owns a private security firm. Very exclusive clientele, very expensive, and very interested in my fiancé, apparently. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Victor's eyes were cold now. All pretense of concern dropped. Because, from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having some kind of crisis that's being encouraged by a stranger with questionable motives. He was trying to help me. Help you do what? Leave me? Destroy everything we've built together? We haven't built anything together, Victor. You've built something and placed me in it like furniture. There's a difference. She opened the door. If you walk out that door right now, Victor said quietly, we're going to have a very different conversation when you come back. It was a threat, dressed up as a statement, but a threat nonetheless. Lena looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to remember why she'd ever said yes to this man. Had he always been like this? Had she just been too lonely, too eager to be chosen, too desperate to believe someone saw value in her? Maybe we need a different conversation, she said, and walked out. The morning air was sharp and clean. Lena stood on the sidewalk outside Victor's building, breathing hard like she'd just run a marathon. Her whole body was shaking. She'd done it. She'd actually said no to him. She'd walked away. Now what? She pulled out her phone and stared at it. She had messages from her mother, her sister, 3 friends she'd slowly stopped seeing because Victor said they were bad influences. People she'd let drift away because it was easier than explaining why she couldn't make plans anymore, why every decision had to be cleared with her fiancé first. She scrolled past them all and opened her contacts, found the number she'd entered last night at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come, and Adrian Wolf's words wouldn't stop echoing in her head. Her thumb hovered over the call button. This was insane. She didn't know this man. He could be dangerous, unstable, exactly what Victor had suggested. She should call her sister, her friend Maya. Anyone except a stranger who'd inserted himself into her life based on nothing but a glance across a restaurant. She pressed call. It rang 3 times. Lena almost hung up. "I was wondering if you'd use that number." Adrian's voice was rough, like he'd just woken up. "Or if you'd talk yourself out of it." "I'm very good at talking myself out of things," Lena said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "But apparently not today." "Where are you?" "Standing outside my fiancé's building trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing with my life." "That's a start." She heard movement on his end, the sound of a door closing. "Do you have somewhere safe to go?" "Safe?" "Someone who won't tell Victor where you are. Someone who won't try to fix this for you." Lena thought about it. Her mother would panic and insist she go to therapy. Her sister would want to organize an intervention. Her friends, the ones she had left, would either take Victor's side or get so involved it would become their drama too. "Not really," she admitted. Adrian was quiet for a moment. "There's a coffee shop on the corner of 5th and Morrison. Independent place, always busy. Public enough to be safe, quiet enough to actually talk. Can you get there?" "I don't need you to save me." "I'm not trying to save you. I'm offering you a cup of coffee and a conversation with someone who won't judge you for being confused." Lena closed her eyes. This was a terrible idea. She should hang up, go back upstairs, apologize to Victor, and try to fix whatever she'd just broken. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said. The coffee shop was exactly what Adrian had described. Crowded, but not chaotic. The kind of place where people came to work on laptops or read books or have quiet conversations that didn't require performance. Lena found a table in the back corner and ordered something she actually wanted instead of what someone else would have approved of. Adrian arrived 15 minutes later. He looked different in daylight, less imposing. He wore jeans and a dark sweater, his hair still damp like he'd showered in a hurry. When he spotted her, he didn't smile or wave or make any gesture that would draw attention. He just walked over and sat down across from her like they did this every week. "You came," he said. "I'm starting to question my judgment." "Good. That means it's working." A waitress appeared. Adrian ordered black coffee, and Lena noticed he thanked her by name. When she left, he caught Lena staring. "I come here a lot," he explained. "It's one of the few places in the city that feels real." "What's your story?" Lena asked abruptly. "And don't give me the vague trauma bonding speech. If I'm sitting here having coffee with a stranger instead of trying to salvage my relationship, I deserve to know who you actually are." Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Fair enough. What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with why you were at that restaurant watching me like you knew my entire life story." "I was there for a business dinner with a client. You just happened to be at the next table. And I wasn't watching you specifically. I was watching the dynamic. The way you made yourself smaller every time he spoke. The way you apologized for existing." He paused. "It was familiar. You said you loved a man who was controlling." His name was Marcus. "We were together for 3 years. He was brilliant, successful, charming when he wanted to be, and he convinced me that I was nothing without his guidance, that my instincts were wrong, that I needed him to teach me how to be better." "What happened?" "I woke up one morning and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd made a decision without checking with him first. Couldn't remember what my own opinions were on anything that mattered. I'd become this hollow version of myself, and I didn't even know when it had happened." The waitress brought their coffee. Adrian waited until she was gone before continuing. "So I left, packed a bag while he was at work, emptied my half of the bank account, and disappeared. Stayed with a friend he didn't know about, changed my number, basically torched my entire life and started over." "Just like that?" "Not just like that. It was messy and terrifying, and I spent 6 months in therapy trying to figure out who I was without him telling me. But yeah, I left. Because staying would have killed me. Maybe not literally, but the person I was before Marcus. She would have been completely gone." Lena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "She? I was a woman when I met Marcus. Figured out I was a trans man about a year after I left him." Adrian's expression was carefully neutral. "Turns out it's hard to understand yourself when someone else is constantly defining you." "Oh." Lena didn't know what else to say. "I'm sorry. I didn't..." Don't apologize. I told you because it's relevant. When you're with someone who's slowly erasing you, you lose track of everything. Your preferences, your boundaries, your identity. Everything becomes about maintaining the peace, about being who they need you to be. Victor found out about you, Lena said quietly. Had his assistant research you. He thinks you're trying to manipulate me. Of course he does. Men like Victor see threats everywhere because their control is so fragile. The moment you show any sign of independent thought, they panic. He said we'd have a different conversation when I got back. Are you going back? Lena stared into her coffee. I don't know. I live there. All my things are there. My whole life is built around him. I don't have a job anymore. I don't have my own money. She stopped, hearing herself. I sound pathetic. You sound trapped. There's a difference. How did you do it? Really? How did you walk away from everything? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. I stopped waiting for permission. I stopped waiting to feel ready or certain or brave enough. I just decided that anything was better than the slow death of staying. What if I'm wrong? Lena's voice cracked. What if this is all in my head? What if I'm just scared of commitment or self-sabotaging or... Lena. Adrian leaned forward. Has Victor ever apologized to you? Actually apologized without deflecting or turning it into something you did wrong? She opened her mouth to say yes. The word wouldn't come. Has he ever asked you what you wanted and actually listened to the answer? Silence. Has he ever made you feel like your thoughts, your feelings, your desires mattered as much as his? Lena felt something crack inside her chest. Not break. She'd been breaking for 2 years. This was different. This was the crack that happens right before something finally shatters completely. No, she whispered. Then you're not wrong. You're not crazy. You're finally seeing clearly. A tear slid down her cheek, then another. Lena tried to wipe them away, but they kept coming, and suddenly she was crying in the middle of a coffee shop while a stranger who'd appeared in her life less than 12 hours ago sat across from her and didn't tell her to calm down or pull herself together or worry about what people might think. I'm sorry, she managed. Stop apologizing. Adrian pushed a napkin across the table. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to be a mess. You're allowed to not have all the answers. I don't know what to do. Yes, you do. You're just scared to do it. Lena looked up at him through her tears. What if leaving him is the biggest mistake I ever make? What if staying with him is? The question hung between them. Her phone buzzed. A text from Victor. Where are you? We need to talk. Don't make this worse than it needs to be. Lena stared at the message. The old version of herself would have responded immediately. Would have apologized, made excuses, rushed back to smooth things over. The version of herself that had ordered chocolate souffle and walked out of his apartment that morning. She turned off her phone. I need to get my things, she said. From the apartment. I can't just leave everything. Do you have somewhere to go once you have them? Lena thought about Maya, her friend from college who'd stopped calling after Victor made it clear he disapproved of her lifestyle choices, which apparently meant having opinions and refusing to pretend she didn't. Maya had sent her a text last month. I miss you. Call me when you remember who you are. Maybe, Lena said. I have a friend. We haven't talked in a while, but call her. What if she's angry at me for disappearing? Then she'll tell you, and you'll deal with it. But I'm guessing if she's the kind of person Victor didn't like, she's exactly the kind of person you need right now. Lena pulled out her phone, stared at Maya's number, and felt fear curl in her stomach. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of having to admit how far she'd fallen. She called anyway. Maya picked up on the second ring. Holy shit! Lena? Hi. Lena's voice came out small. I know it's been a long time. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm not okay. I'm actually really not okay. And I know I've been a terrible friend, and I know I have no right to ask, but where are you? What? Where are you? Maya's voice was sharp with worry. Are you safe? I'm at a coffee shop. I left Victor. I think I left Victor. I don't know. Everything's a mess, and I don't know what I'm doing. Thank fucking God. Maya exhaled sharply. Okay, listen to me. Do you need a place to stay? Maybe? I need to get my stuff from his apartment first. Do not go there alone. Victor's a manipulative asshole. You go there by yourself and he'll talk you into staying. I've seen it happen 100 times. I can handle it. Lena, do you trust me? The question stopped her. Did she? She'd spent 2 years not trusting anyone except Victor, and look where that had gotten her. Yes, Lena said quietly. Then listen. You need backup. Someone who won't let him intimidate you or guilt you or do that thing where he makes you feel crazy for having boundaries. Do you have someone who can go with you? Lena looked across the table at Adrian, who was pretending not to listen while obviously listening to every word. Yeah, she said. I think I do. Good. Get your stuff. Don't engage with him. Don't explain yourself. Just get what you need and get out. Then come to my place. I'll text you the address. Maya. I'm serious, Lena. Don't try to make it pretty. Don't try to fix it. Just get out. We'll deal with everything else after. The call ended. Lena sat there holding her phone, feeling like she'd just been thrown a lifeline from a ship she'd forgotten existed. Your friend sounds smart, Adrian said. She is. She tried to warn me about Victor a year ago. I stopped talking to her because of it. And she just offered you a place to stay anyway. Yeah. Lena felt her throat tighten again. She did. So, do you want company when you go back for your things, or would you rather handle it alone? Lena thought about walking into that apartment by herself, facing Victor's controlled disappointment, his subtle implications that she was being irrational, his ability to make her doubt everything she knew to be true. Company would be good, she admitted. But I don't understand why you're helping me. You don't know me. This isn't your problem. No, but I know what it's like to need someone who understands. When I left Marcus, I had one friend who got it. Everyone else told me I was overreacting or that relationships take work or that I should try couples counseling. But this one friend, she'd been through something similar. She didn't judge, didn't try to fix me, just stood next to me while I figured my shit out. And now you're being that person for me. If you'll let me. Lena looked at him. This stranger who'd seen through her carefully maintained facade in a single evening, who'd offered her truth when everyone else was offering platitudes. Okay, she said, but if this turns into some kind of savior complex situation, I'm out. Adrian smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him, and it transformed his face. Deal. And for the record, I don't want to save you. I just want to stand next to you while you save yourself. They finished their coffee in silence that was surprisingly comfortable. Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years, the absence of performance. She didn't have to modulate her expressions or choose her words carefully or worry about disappointing anyone. She could just be. It was strange and uncomfortable and absolutely terrifying. It was also the first breath of real air she'd taken in 2 years. Ready? Adrian asked eventually. Lena thought about Victor's apartment, the clothes she'd bought because he approved of them, the books she'd stopped reading because they weren't intellectually rigorous enough, the life she'd built that had never actually been hers. No, she said honestly, but let's go anyway. They walked out of the coffee shop into the cold morning. The city was fully awake now, people rushing past with their own dramas and problems and lives. Lena felt simultaneously invisible and hypervisible, like she was both drowning in the crowd and completely exposed. We'll take my car, Adrian said, leading her toward a black sedan parked down the street. And Lena, whatever happens up there, remember something. What? You're not asking for permission. You're informing him of a decision you've already made. There's a difference. Lena nodded, even though her entire body was screaming at her to turn around, to call Victor, to apologize and make this all go away. But she'd spent 2 years making herself go away? Maybe it was time to make him uncomfortable instead. The elevator ride to Victor's penthouse felt like descending into deep water. Lena watched the numbers climb, 12, 13, 14. And with each floor, the pressure in her chest increased. Adrian stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking completely at ease in a way that should have been reassuring but somehow made everything feel more real. You don't have to explain anything to him, Adrian said quietly. Get your things. That's it. He's going to want to talk. Then let him talk. You don't have to respond. The elevator chimed. 23rd floor. The doors opened onto the private hallway that led to Victor's door. Lena's hands were shaking as she pulled out her key. She'd lived here for a year and a half, but standing in this hallway now felt like approaching a stranger's home. Had she ever belonged here? Or had she just been a carefully selected accessory, moved in to complete the aesthetic? She unlocked the door. Victor was waiting in the living room, standing by the windows with a drink in his hand, even though it wasn't even noon. He was still in his suit from earlier, but he'd loosened his tie. That tiny concession to casualness felt threatening somehow, like he'd removed part of his armor and was preparing for war. He looked at Lena, then at Adrian. His expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "So you brought him here," Victor said. His voice was perfectly modulated, calm. "Interesting choice." "I'm just here to help her get her things," Adrian said. I wasn't speaking to you." Victor's gaze remained on Lena. "I think we should talk. Alone." "No," Lena said. The word came out stronger than she expected. "No?" "I'm getting my stuff and leaving. That's it." Victor set down his drink with careful precision. "Lena, whatever's happening right now, whatever this is, we can work through it. But you need to ask your friend to leave so we can have an actual conversation." "There's nothing to work through." "You're upset. You're confused. You had some kind of episode last night, and now you're making rash decisions." "I'm not confused, Victor. I'm done." The word hung in the air. Done. Final. Absolute. Victor's jaw tightened. "You don't mean that." "I do." "Because of him?" Victor gestured toward Adrian with the kind of dismissive contempt usually reserved for something stuck to the bottom of a shoe. "Because some stranger approached you in a restaurant and filled your head with, what? Conspiracy theories about how terrible I am?" "He didn't have to tell me anything," Lena said. "I already knew. I've known for a while. I just convinced myself it was normal." What's normal is that relationships require work, compromise. Sometimes one partner has more experience, more knowledge, and helps guide the other. That's not abuse, Lena. That's partnership. "You don't guide me. You control me." "I've never controlled you." Victor moved closer. Not threatening exactly, but deliberate. "I've offered suggestions, helped you avoid mistakes, supported your growth. If you've felt controlled, that's a perception issue we can address in therapy." "There it is," Adrian said quietly. Victor's eyes cut to him. "Excuse me?" The deflection, making her think her very reasonable reaction to your behavior is actually her being broken somehow. Classic move. "I don't recall asking for your input." "You didn't. I'm giving it anyway." Adrian's voice stayed level, but there was steel underneath. "You're doing exactly what she said. Telling her that her feelings are wrong, that she needs fixing, that if she'd just try harder, trust you more, be less difficult, everything would be fine. You know nothing about our relationship." "I know enough." Victor laughed. It was a cold sound, completely devoid of humor. "Lena, do you hear this? You've brought a complete stranger into our home, into our private life, and you're letting him speak for you. How is that any different from what you're accusing me of?" "He's not speaking for me," Lena said. "He's saying what I'm too tired to say myself." "Which is what? That I'm some kind of monster? That I've been abusing you?" Victor's voice rose slightly. "I've given you everything. A home, security, a life most people would kill for. And this is how you repay me? By listening to some—" "Don't." Adrian's voice cut through the room. "Whatever you're about to say, don't." "Or what?" "Or you'll prove every single thing she's realized about you in the past 24 hours. They stared at each other. The air in the room felt charged, dangerous. Lena had never seen Victor lose his composure, but she could see him fighting for it now. His hands were clenched at his sides. A vein pulsed in his temple. "I want you out of my home," Victor said quietly. "I'm leaving," Lena said, "as soon as I get my things." "I was talking to him. He's staying until I'm done." Victor turned to her, and for the first time she saw something other than controlled disappointment in his eyes. She saw rage, pure, undiluted rage that he was barely keeping contained. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," he said. "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." "You think you can just walk away? You have nothing, Lena. No job, no money, no prospects. You've been out of the workforce for 2 years. Who's going to hire you? Who's going to want you? The words were designed to cut, designed to make her small and afraid and desperate. 6 months ago, they would have worked. I don't know, Lena said. I guess I'll find out. She walked past him toward the bedroom. Her legs felt unsteady, but she kept moving. Behind her, she heard Adrian speak. You should probably stay out here, he said to Victor. Give her some space. This is my home. I'll go where I want. Yeah, you could do that. Or you could act like someone who actually cares about her comfort for the first time in your relationship. Lena didn't hear Victor's response. She was already in his bedroom, staring at the closet full of clothes she'd bought because he approved of them. Neutral colors. Classic cuts. Nothing too bright or bold or attention-grabbing. Nothing that screamed, look at me instead of look at us. She started pulling things off hangers. Not everything. Just the pieces that felt like hers. The sweater her sister had given her, the jeans Victor hated, the dress she'd worn on her 30th birthday before she'd met him. Evidence of a person who used to exist. The suitcase was in the closet. She pulled it down and started packing mechanically. Clothes, shoes, toiletries. Her hands were shaking, but she kept moving. If she stopped, she might lose her nerve. You can't even look at me. Lena spun around. Victor was standing in the doorway, Adrian visible behind him in the hallway, watching. I asked you to stay in the living room, Lena said, and I'm asking you to stop this insanity and talk to me like an adult. I am talking to you. I'm telling you I'm leaving. Why? Victor stepped into the room. Give me one concrete reason, not vague feelings or complaints, an actual reason why you're throwing away 2 years and a future together. Lena stopped packing, turned to face him fully. You want one reason? Yes. You've never once asked me what I wanted and actually listened to the answer. Not about where to live or what to eat or who to spend time with or what to do with my life. Every single decision has been yours. Every single time I've tried to express a preference, you found a way to make me feel stupid for having it. That's not true. What's my favorite color, Victor? He blinked. What? My favorite color. We've been together for 2 years. We're engaged. What's my favorite color? Victor's expression shifted. Uncertainty flickered across his face. Blue. Green. It's green. It's been green my entire life, but you don't know that because you've never asked. You decorated this entire apartment without once asking what I liked. You just decided, and I went along with it because I thought that's what love looked like. This is ridiculous. What do I do on Sunday mornings when you're playing golf? Victor faltered. You read or something. I used to volunteer at an animal shelter every Sunday for 3 years before I met you. I loved it. It made me feel useful. But you said it was a waste of time and that I needed to focus on more important things. So I stopped. And you didn't even notice. You never asked what I was giving up to build this life with you. Lena? What's my favorite food? What's my middle name? What did I want to be when I was a kid? What's the last book I read that you didn't assign me? Her voice was rising now. Months of swallowed words pouring out. You don't know any of it because you've never cared to know. You only care about the version of me that fits into your life. The version that makes you look good at dinner parties and doesn't embarrass you by having opinions. Victor's face had gone very still. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is that I let you do it. What's not fair is that I convinced myself this was normal. That being slowly erased was just part of being in a mature relationship. I never asked you to erase yourself. You didn't have to ask. You just made it clear that being myself was never quite good enough. The silence that followed was absolute. Victor stared at her like she was a stranger, and Lena realized with a jolt that maybe she was. Maybe the person he'd fallen in love with, or thought he'd fallen in love with, had been a fantasy. A blank canvas he could paint whatever he wanted onto. If you walk out that door, Victor said quietly, we're done. No second chances. No working it out later. You'll be throwing away everything we could have had. I know. You'll regret this. Maybe, Lena zipped up her suitcase, but I'll regret staying more. She walked toward the door. Victor didn't move, didn't try to stop her physically, but his presence filled the doorway like a wall. Move, Lena said. This is a mistake. Then it's my mistake. He's using you. Victor's eyes cut to Adrian. Whatever he told you, whatever he promised you, He's using your vulnerability for his own agenda. You're too naive to see it. Or maybe, Adrian said from the hallway, you're too narcissistic to believe she'd leave you for any reason other than another man's manipulation. Victor's hands clenched. You have no idea what you've done. Coming into my home, poisoning her against me. I didn't poison anything. I just reminded her that she's allowed to want things. That's not manipulation. That's basic human decency. Get out! Victor's voice dropped to something dangerous. Get out of my home right now or I'll call security. I'm already leaving, Lena said. We both are. She pushed past Victor into the hallway. Adrian fell into step beside her, and together they walked toward the front door. Lena half expected Victor to follow, to make one last attempt at stopping her, but when she glanced back, he was just standing in the bedroom doorway, watching her leave with an expression she couldn't read. It should have felt like victory, like freedom. Instead, it felt like stepping off a cliff and hoping someone had bothered to build a safety net below. The elevator ride down was silent. Lena clutched her suitcase handle so hard her knuckles went white. She could feel Adrian's presence beside her, solid and real, but she couldn't look at him. If she looked at him, she might start crying or screaming, or both. They made it to the lobby, through the rotating doors, onto the street where Adrian's car was still parked. Lena made it 3 steps before her legs gave out. She didn't fall. Adrian caught her, one hand under her elbow, steadying her until she found her balance again. Sorry, she managed. I'm fine. You're not fine. That's okay. She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't explain the feeling of having just destroyed her entire life on a hunch that might be completely wrong. In the car, Adrian said gently. You can fall apart in the car. He opened the passenger door. Lena climbed in, her body moving on autopilot. Adrian loaded her suitcase into the trunk and slid into the driver's seat. Where to? He asked. Lena pulled out her phone, found Maya's text with her address. Read it out loud in a voice that didn't sound like her own. Adrian pulled into traffic. The city slid past the windows, buildings and people and life continuing despite the fact that Lena's world had just imploded. She watched it all with a strange detachment, like she was underwater and everything above the surface was happening to someone else. You did the right thing, Adrian said after a few minutes. How do you know? Because you're still breathing. That's more than you were doing up there. Lena laughed. It came out broken, edged with hysteria. I just left my fiancé. Gave up the apartment I've been living in. Walked away from a life most people would kill for, and I have no idea what happens next. What happens next is you figure it out, one day at a time, one decision at a time. What if I can't? Then you ask for help, from your friend, from a therapist, from whoever you need. From you? Adrian was quiet for a moment. I'm not trying to be your savior, Lena. I'm not trying to replace Victor with some different version of control. I'm just someone who saw you drowning and threw you a rope. What you do with that rope is up to you. Why? Lena turned to look at him. Why do you care? You don't know me. This isn't your problem. Because 3 years ago I was you, standing in the ruins of a relationship that nearly killed me, trying to figure out how to be a person again. And someone helped me. Not because they had to, not because they wanted something from me, just because they could. He glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. I'm paying it forward. What if I'm making a huge mistake? What if Victor was right and I'm just confused or having some kind of crisis? Lena, Adrian's voice was firm. Do you trust yourself right now? Not what Victor told you to think, not what you're afraid people will say. Do you in your gut trust that leaving was the right decision? Lena closed her eyes, thought about Victor's apartment with its perfect everything and its complete absence of her. Thought about the way she'd stopped tasting food, stopped having opinions, stopped recognizing her own reflection. Yes, she whispered. Then that's all that matters. They drove in silence for a while. Lena watched the neighborhoods change outside her window. The polished high-rises giving way to older buildings, tree-lined streets, the kind of area where people actually lived instead of just existing in expensive boxes. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Victor. You're acting like a child. When you're ready to discuss this rationally, call me. Lena stared at the message. Even now, even after everything, he was trying to make her feel small, irrational, wrong for having feelings he hadn't approved. She blocked his number. It was such a small thing. A few taps on a screen, but it felt like slamming a door that had been slowly crushing her for 2 years. "We're here," Adrian said. Lena looked up. They were parked in front of a brownstone apartment building, modest but well-maintained. Ivy climbed up one side. There were actual plants on some of the balconies, not the carefully curated succulents Victor preferred. It looked like a place where real people lived real lives. Adrian got her suitcase from the trunk. Lena stood on the sidewalk, staring at the building like it might disappear if she blinked. "You want me to come up with you?" Adrian asked. "No, I think I need to do this part alone." He nodded, handed her a business card, a different one this time. "My personal number, not the work line. If you need anything, call me. I mean it, anytime." "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This part, the leaving, that was the easy part. The hard part is figuring out who you are now, who you want to be." "That's the easy part?" Adrian smiled. It was sad and knowing and carried too much experience. The leaving is just one decision. The staying gone is about 1,000 decisions every single day. Some of them will be harder than what you just did. "Great, that's really encouraging." "I'm not here to encourage you. I'm here to tell you the truth." He squeezed her shoulder briefly. "But you're stronger than you think. You wouldn't have made it this far if you weren't." He got back in his car. Lena watched him drive away, feeling like her last connection to stability had just vanished into traffic. She turned toward the building, found Maya's apartment number on the directory, pressed the buzzer. "Hello?" Maya's voice crackled through the intercom. "It's me," Lena said. The door buzzed open immediately. Maya's apartment was on the 3rd floor. Lena dragged her suitcase up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. By the time she reached the right door, she was breathing hard and her hands were shaking again. The door opened before she could knock. Maya stood there in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun, looking exactly the same as she had 2 years ago when Lena had slowly stopped returning her calls. They stared at each other. "I'm sorry," Lena said. "I'm so sorry. I know I was a terrible friend. I know I let him isolate me from you, and I should have listened when you tried to warn me, and—" Maya pulled her into a hug so tight Lena's ribs hurt. "Shut up," Maya said. "Just shut up and get in here." Lena started crying then, really crying. Not the careful, controlled tears she'd learned to cry around Victor, the kind that didn't smudge makeup or cause a scene. These were ugly, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Maya held her through it, didn't tell her to calm down or pull herself together, just held her in the doorway of her apartment while Lena fell apart. Eventually, the tears slowed. Lena pulled back, wiping her face with her sleeve. "Sorry, I'm getting snot on your shirt." "I have other shirts." Maya grabbed Lena's suitcase and pulled her inside. "Come on." I made coffee. And I stress-baked 3 dozen cookies last night because I had a feeling this was coming. The apartment was small, tiny, compared to Victor's penthouse, but it was warm, lived in. There were books stacked on surfaces, mismatched furniture, photographs taped to the walls. It looked like Maya. It looked like home. Lena sank onto the couch and accepted the mug of coffee Maya pressed into her hands. "So," Maya said, sitting across from her, "tell me everything." "I don't even know where to start." "Start with the guy you brought as backup. Who was that?" "His name is Adrian. We met last night. He saw me at dinner with Victor, and it's complicated." "Complicated how?" "He went through something similar, with a controlling partner. He recognized what was happening and he told me the truth. About what I was living through. About what it was costing me." Maya's expression was carefully neutral. "And you believed him?" I wanted to not believe him. I spent all night trying to convince myself he was wrong. But every time I tried to argue with what he'd said, I couldn't, because he was right. About all of it. "Okay." Maya set down her own mug. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay." "Did Victor ever hurt you, physically?" "No, never. It wasn't like that." "But he hurt you in other ways." Lena nodded, not trusting her voice. "Tell me." So Lena did. She told Maya everything. About the gradual erosion of her choices. About the constant criticism disguised as help. about feeling like she was disappearing piece by piece until she barely recognized herself, about ordering a dessert and having it feel like an act of revolution. Maya listened without interrupting. When Lena finally ran out of words, Maya was quiet for a long moment. "I should have tried harder," Maya said finally. "I should have pushed more when I saw what was happening. I wouldn't have listened. I didn't want to see it. But I knew. I saw it happening, and I got angry and backed off instead of fighting for you. I'm sorry." "Don't," Lena's voice cracked. "Don't apologize. You tried. I was the one who chose him over everyone else in my life." "You were manipulated. There's a difference." "Is there? I mean, I'm an adult. I made choices, bad choices, but still—" "Lena." Maya leaned forward. "People like Victor are experts at making you think their control is your choice. That's the whole point. If it felt like force, you'd resist. So they make it feel like love, like care. Like if you just try harder, be better, trust them more, everything would be perfect." That's exactly what it felt like. Because that's how it works. And it's not your fault for falling for it. It's his fault for weaponizing your trust. Lena felt something loosen in her chest. Permission to be angry instead of just ashamed. Permission to blame the person who'd actually hurt her instead of herself for being hurt. "What do I do now?" she asked. "Now. Now you stay here as long as you need. You eat too many cookies. You cry when you need to cry. You figure out who you are without Victor's voice in your head telling you who to be. I don't have a job. I don't have money. We'll figure it out, one thing at a time." Maya stood up. "But right now you need sleep. You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't. Guest room's already made up. Go. Sleep. Everything else can wait." Lena wanted to argue, wanted to make plans, figure out next steps, solve all her problems immediately. But exhaustion hit her like a wave, and she realized Maya was right. She was running on empty. She made it to the guest room, collapsed onto the bed fully clothed. The last thing she thought before sleep took her was that the ceiling was painted light green, her favorite color. Victor had never bothered to ask. Lena woke up disoriented, her heart pounding before she even opened her eyes. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. The bed felt wrong. The light coming through the window was the wrong color. Everything smelled different. Not the expensive candles Victor preferred, but something simpler. Coffee, toast, life happening in another room. Then it all came rushing back. The restaurant, Adrian, the confrontation, leaving. She'd actually left. Lena sat up slowly, her body aching like she'd been in a fight. Maybe she had been, just not the kind that left visible bruises. Her phone was on the nightstand. She'd plugged it in at some point without remembering doing it. The screen showed 11 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. Victor must have called from a different phone after she'd blocked him, and a dozen texts from her mother. She didn't open any of them. Instead, she got up, splashed water on her face in the small bathroom attached to the guest room, and emerged to find Maya in the kitchen, burning something. "Don't judge me," Maya said without turning around. "I stress bake. I don't stress cook. There's a difference." "What are you making?" "Technically, scrambled eggs." In reality, a science experiment on what happens when you forget food exists for 10 minutes. Maya scraped the pan's contents into the trash. "How about cereal?" "Cereal's good." They sat at Maya's small kitchen table, so different from Victor's massive dining table that could seat 12 but never had, and ate cereal in silence. Lena kept expecting to feel guilty, ashamed, terrified. Instead, she just felt tired. Bone-deep tired, like she'd been running a marathon for 2 years and finally stopped. "Your mom's been calling me," Maya said eventually. Lena's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing yet. I figured you'd want to handle it yourself." "She's going to lose her mind." "Probably." Maya crunched her cereal thoughtfully. She liked Victor. Everyone liked Victor. That was the whole problem. He's perfect on paper. Yeah, well, paper doesn't tell you shit about what happens behind closed doors. Lena's phone started buzzing. Her mother again. She let it go to voicemail. "You're going to have to talk to her eventually," Maya said. "I know, just not today. I can't defend myself to anyone else today." "Then don't answer. Today is about you figuring out what you need. Everyone else can wait." But the universe apparently had other plans. 5 minutes later, someone knocked on Maya's door. Not a gentle knock. An insistent, rapid-fire pounding that made both of them freeze. "You expecting someone?" Lena asked. Maya shook her head and moved to the door. Looked through the peephole. Her expression went very still. "It's your sister." "Claire?" "Unless you have a different sister I don't know about." Before Lena could respond, Claire's voice came through the door. "I know you're in there, Maya. Mom told me Lena called you. Open the door." Maya looked at Lena, eyebrows raised, a silent question. Lena wanted to hide, wanted to pretend she wasn't here. But Claire would just keep pounding, and Maya's neighbors would complain, and this was happening whether she was ready or not. She nodded. Maya opened the door. Claire stood in the hallway looking like a professional storm system. Designer suit, perfect hair, the kind of put-together that came from years of corporate law training. She looked like Victor, Lena thought with a jolt. Not physically, but in that way of existing in the world like she owned every room she entered. "You blocked Victor," Claire said without preamble. "Hello to you too," Lena replied. Claire pushed past Maya into the apartment. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Victor called Dad last night. Dad called Mom. Mom called me at 6 this morning in hysterics because her daughter is having some kind of breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown." "No? Because from where I'm standing, you just blew up your entire life over what? A bad dinner?" "It wasn't about dinner." "Then what was it about?" "Because Victor seems genuinely confused. He said you left with some strange man, that you've been acting erratic, that he's worried about you." Lena laughed. It came out bitter. "Of course that's what he said." "Is it not true?" "The man is a friend, and I haven't been erratic. I've been honest for the first time in 2 years. Claire crossed her arms. "Honest about what?" "About the fact that Victor has spent our entire relationship trying to turn me into someone else. That he criticizes everything I do. That he treats me like a project instead of a person." "That's not Lena. That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation. It's a fact. Victor loves you. He's invested in your growth. There's a difference between being controlling and having standards." And there it was. The same logic Victor used, the same deflection. Lena felt something harden in her chest. "When was the last time we talked?" Lena asked quietly. "Really talked. Not texted, not comments on holiday posts, actually talked." Claire faltered. "I don't know. We've both been busy." 14 months. It's been 14 months since we had an actual conversation. You know why? Because we're adults with lives. Because Victor didn't like you. He said you were too aggressive, too opinionated, that you made me doubt myself. Lena's voice was steady now, certain. And I listened to him. I stopped calling you because it was easier than dealing with his disapproval. I chose keeping him happy over having a relationship with my own sister. Claire's expression shifted. Something uncertain crossed her face. "That's not... I never thought..." "You never thought what? That he was isolating me? That he was slowly cutting me off from everyone who might point out what he was doing?" "Lena, I think you're..." "What? Overreacting? Being dramatic?" See, that's what he'd say too. Anytime I tried to express how I felt, he'd tell me I was being too sensitive or reading too much into things. And eventually, I just stopped trying. I stopped trusting my own perception because his was apparently more valid than mine. Maya, who'd been standing by the door, spoke up. "I tried to tell you, a year ago, remember? At Mom's birthday?" Claire turned to her. "You said you were concerned, not that..." "I said I thought Victor was controlling. You told me I was jealous because I was single and Lena had found someone successful." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. "I don't remember that," Claire said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "You don't remember because you didn't want to see it. None of you did. You all loved the idea of Lena with this successful lawyer who had money and status and looked good at family events. You didn't ask if she was actually happy." Claire looked at Lena, really looked at her. "Are you happy?" "No." The word came out simple and absolute. "I haven't been happy in a long time. I've been performing happiness while slowly disappearing. Why didn't you say something?" "I did. You just didn't hear me." "None of you did." Claire sank onto the couch like her legs had given out. She stared at her hands for a long moment. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. "I'm your older sister. I'm supposed to protect you." You can't protect me from something you don't believe is happening. I should have believed you. I should have. Claire stopped. When I saw you with Victor at Christmas, you looked so thin and quiet, not yourself. And I told myself you were just stressed about wedding planning. I wasn't stressed about wedding planning. I was stressed about existing. And I missed it. I completely fucking missed it. Maya sat down next to Claire, which surprised Lena. Maya and Claire had never been close, but Maya put a hand on Claire's shoulder anyway. You weren't the only one who missed it, Maya said. Her mom missed it. Her friends missed it. I almost missed it, and I've seen this pattern before. People like Victor are really good at looking perfect from the outside. Claire wiped her eyes. What do you need? From me. What do you need? Lena hadn't expected that question. She'd expected judgment, lectures, demands that she try harder to make it work. I need you to believe me, Lena said. I need you to not try to fix this or convince me to go back to him. I need you to just believe that I know what I'm doing even when I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, Claire nodded. Okay, I can do that. What else? Tell Mom that I'm safe, that I'm fine, that I'll call her when I'm ready, but she needs to stop trying to mediate with Victor. She's going to want to help. Then she can help by giving me space. Claire pulled out her phone. I'm texting her right now, and Dad, I'll handle them. You just do whatever you need to do. Lena felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of it. Thank you, she said. Claire stood up, hesitated, then crossed the room and pulled Lena into a hug that was awkward and fierce at the same time. I'm sorry I didn't see it, Claire whispered. I'm so sorry. You see it now. That's what matters. Claire left a few minutes later, promising to run interference with their family. Lena watched her go and felt the strangest mix of relief and loss. She'd spent so long feeling completely alone that having someone actually believe her felt surreal. Your sister's intense, Maya said. Yeah, but she means well. Well-meaning and helpful aren't always the same thing. Lena's phone buzzed again. Not her mother this time. A text from an unknown number. This is Adrian. Just checking in. You don't have to respond. Just wanted you to know I'm here if you need anything. She stared at the message. This man who'd appeared in her life 2 days ago was checking on her like they were old friends. It should have felt weird, inappropriate. Instead, it just felt like someone cared whether she was okay. She typed back, I'm alive. Thank you for yesterday. The response came almost immediately. That's all you need to be today. Alive. Who's that? Maya asked, reading over her shoulder. Adrian, the guy from yesterday. The one who helped you get your stuff? Yeah. Is he hitting on you? Lena looked at the message again. There was nothing flirtatious about it, nothing that suggested he wanted anything from her except for her to be okay. No, she said. I don't think so. Good. Because you need about 6 months to a year before you should even think about dating anyone. I'm not thinking about dating, I'm thinking about surviving the next 24 hours. Then let's focus on that. Maya grabbed her keys. Come on, we're going out. Where? Anywhere. You've been inside for 2 days. You need air. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to stay hidden in Maya's apartment where Victor couldn't find her and the world couldn't ask questions she didn't have answers for. But Maya was already pulling on her coat, and some part of Lena recognized that staying inside would just give her more time to second-guess everything. They ended up at a park a few blocks away. It was cold, but the sun was out, and there were people everywhere, jogging, walking dogs, pushing strollers. Normal people living normal lives, oblivious to the fact that Lena's entire existence had just been demolished. I used to come here, Lena said as they walked along a path lined with bare trees. Before Victor, I'd bring a book and just sit by the pond for hours. When did you stop? He said it was a waste of time, that I should be doing something productive, networking or taking classes or working on self-improvement. Sitting by a pond with a book is self-improvement. Not according to Victor. They found a bench overlooking the water, sat down. Lena watched ducks gliding across the surface and tried to remember what it felt like to just exist without justifying every choice. Can I ask you something? Maya said after a while. Sure. What are you going to do about money? About work? I don't know. I have some savings. Not much. Victor managed our finances, but enough for a few months if I'm careful. And after that? I'll figure it out. Find a job. Any job. I don't care anymore about titles or prestige or whatever. I just need something that's mine. What about your nonprofit experience? You were good at that work. I've been out of that world for 2 years. Nobody's going to hire me. You don't know that. I let my contacts lapse. I stopped following industry news. I basically erased that entire part of my life to be Victor's perfect fiancé. Maya turned to face her. So you start over. You rebuild. It'll be hard and it'll take time, but you've already done the hardest part. Which is what? You left. Everything else is just details. Lena wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that leaving was the hard part and everything else would somehow be easier. But sitting on this bench, watching normal people live normal lives, she felt the weight of everything she'd just lost. The security, the status, the life she'd thought she wanted, even if she'd never actually been happy in it. Her phone rang. Not a number she recognized, but this time she answered anyway. Lena Carter? A woman's voice, professional. Yes? This is Jennifer Hastings. I'm Victor Hale's colleague at the firm. I'm calling because Victor asked me to reach out regarding some personal items you left at his residence. Lena's stomach dropped. I took everything I needed. He mentioned there were some pieces of jewelry, family heirlooms. He'd like to return them to you. It was a trap, obviously a trap. Victor didn't give a shit about jewelry. He wanted her to come back to the apartment, wanted another chance to talk her into staying. Tell him to mail them, Lena said. He feels this is something that should be handled in person. Given the value, then tell him to donate them. I don't want anything from him. Miss Carter, I really think… Lena hung up. Her hands were shaking again. Victor? Maya asked. His colleague, trying to get me to go back to the apartment. For what? Jewelry, apparently, which is bullshit. He just wants another shot at convincing me I'm making a mistake. Maya's expression hardened. He's not going to stop, is he? No. Guys like Victor don't just accept rejection. They see it as a problem to solve. What are you going to do? Not go back there. Not alone. Maybe not at all. Her phone rang again. Different number. Jesus Christ, Lena muttered, but she answered anyway. What? Whoa. Aggressive. It was Adrian. Bad time? Sorry. I thought you were someone else. Victor's still calling? Through his colleagues now. I blocked his number. Smart. Listen, I know you probably don't want to deal with me right now, but I have something for you. What? A contact. Woman who runs a shelter for people leaving abusive relationships. She's helped me with some of my security work. She knows all the practical stuff. Legal protections, financial resources, therapy referrals. I texted her about your situation. She's willing to meet with you if you want. Lena's first instinct was to refuse. She didn't need a shelter. She wasn't being abused. She was just… Except she was. Maybe not physically, but Adrian's friend would understand that. Would understand all the ways someone could hurt you without ever raising their voice or their hand. Okay, Lena said. Yeah, that would be helpful. I'll text you her info. No pressure, just if you need it. Adrian? Yeah? Why are you doing this? Really? He was quiet for a moment. Because when I left Marcus, I had one person who believed me, just one. And that was barely enough. I'm not trying to be your hero or your savior or whatever. I just don't want you to feel as alone as I did. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just call her if you need her. The call ended. Lena sat there holding her phone, staring at the contact information Adrian sent through. Diana Morrison, licensed therapist specializing in coercive control and domestic abuse. You okay? Maya asked. I don't know. Adrian set me up with a therapist who specializes in abusive relationships. That's good, right? It's just saying that word. Abusive. It feels too big, too dramatic. Victor never hit me. He never even yelled that much. Abuse isn't always bruises, Lena. Sometimes it's just someone making you smaller and smaller until you disappear. Lena knew that. Intellectually, she knew that. But knowing it and accepting it as her truth were different things. They walked back to Maya's apartment as afternoon turned to evening. The city felt different now, louder, more chaotic, full of possibilities that were both exciting and terrifying. Lena had spent 2 years in Victor's carefully controlled bubble. The real world felt overwhelming in comparison. Back at the apartment, Maya ordered pizza. Actual pizza with pepperoni and grease, not the artisanal nonsense Victor preferred, and they ate it straight from the box while watching terrible reality TV. It was the most normal Lena had felt in years. Around 9, her phone buzzed with an email. The subject line made her freeze. From Victor Hale. Please read. Don't, Maya said immediately. Whatever it is, don't read it. I have to know what he's saying. No, you don't. You really don't. But Lena was already opening it. The email was long, carefully worded. It started with concern for her well-being, moved into gentle suggestions that she might be experiencing a mental health crisis, mentioned the stress of wedding planning, brought up her family's worry. It was masterful in its manipulation, every sentence designed to make her doubt herself without him ever directly saying she was wrong. And then, at the end, I love you, Lena. I just want you to be happy and healthy. If you need space, I'll give you space. But please, talk to someone professional about what you're going through. I've taken the liberty of making an appointment with Dr. Richardson for Thursday. He's expecting your call. Dr. Richardson, Victor's therapist. The one he'd been seeing for years. The one who'd probably heard Victor's version of their relationship and nothing else. Lena deleted the email without responding. What did it say? Maya asked. That I'm mentally unstable and need therapy with his therapist. Of course he did. Lena set down her phone and grabbed another slice of pizza. You know what the scariest part is? What? 6 months ago, I would have believed him. I would have made that appointment and let his therapist convince me that I was the problem. That if I just tried harder, communicated better, was less sensitive, everything would be fine. But you're not going to do that now. No, but I came so close to never waking up at all. If Adrian hadn't said something that night, if I hadn't ordered that stupid dessert, I might have married Victor, spent my whole life being erased and convinced myself it was love. Maya was quiet for a moment. But you did wake up. You did leave. That's what matters. I keep waiting for it to feel like victory, like freedom. Instead, it just feels like I'm falling and I have no idea when I'm going to hit the ground. Maybe you're not supposed to hit the ground. Maybe you're supposed to learn how to fly. It was such a Maya thing to say, optimistic and corny and somehow exactly right. Lena's phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. A text from Adrian. That shelter contact I sent you, she said if you need to talk tonight, she's available. No pressure, just options. Lena stared at the message. It was 9 at night. This woman, this stranger, was offering to talk to her at 9 at night because Adrian had asked. She typed back, why is she doing this? Because someone did it for her once. Pay it forward. It's how we survive. Lena looked at Diana Morrison's number, thought about Victor's carefully worded email, about his therapist waiting to convince her she was broken. She called Diana. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm, grounded. This is Diana. Hi, I'm Lena Carter. Adrian Wolf gave me your number. Lena, yes, he told me a little about your situation. How are you doing? Such a simple question. But the way Diana asked it, like she actually wanted to know, like she could handle whatever answer Lena gave, made something crack open in Lena's chest. I'm scared, Lena admitted. I left my fiancé 2 days ago, and I'm terrified I made a mistake. I'm terrified I didn't. I don't know how to trust my own judgment anymore. That's normal, Diana said. When someone spent years telling you that your perception is wrong, learning to trust yourself again is hard. It takes time. How much time? There's no timeline. Everyone's different. But Lena, the fact that you left, that you recognized something was wrong and acted on it, that tells me your judgment is working just fine. You're not broken. You're healing. And healing isn't pretty or linear or comfortable. Lena felt tears sliding down her face. Maya squeezed her hand. He sent me an email, Lena said, suggesting I need therapy with his therapist. Of course he did. That's classic Darvo. Deny attack, reverse victim, and offender. He's making you question your reality so you'll come back. How do I stop doubting myself? You start small. You make one decision at a time based on what you want, not what someone else wants for you. You notice when you're telling yourself his version of events instead of trusting your own experience. And you get support from people who believe you. I don't even know what I want anymore. I've spent so long adapting to what he wanted that I don't remember who I am. Then you get to figure it out. One choice at a time. What do you want for dinner? What do you want to wear? What do you want to do with your Tuesday? Those tiny choices, they add up. They remind you that you're allowed to want things, that your preferences matter. They talked for another 20 minutes. Diana didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer simple solutions or promise it would be easy. She just listened and validated and reminded Lena that her reality was real. When the call ended, Lena felt exhausted but somehow lighter. Better? Maya asked. A little. She wants to see me next week. Actually talk through everything. Are you going to go? Yeah, I think I need to. They finished the pizza, watched another episode of trashy TV. Lena showered and changed into pajamas that were hers. Not the expensive silk ones Victor had bought her, but her old college ones that were soft and worn and comfortable. She climbed into bed in Maya's guest room and stared at the green ceiling. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't have to report to anyone, didn't have to explain where she'd been, or what she'd been doing, or why she wasn't living up to someone else's expectations. She was just Lena, scared and uncertain and completely untethered, but free. 3 weeks later, Lena stood outside the building where she'd worked before Victor, staring up at the familiar brick facade like it might disappear if she blinked. The nonprofit was still there, somehow exactly the same. A little shabby, perpetually underfunded, stubbornly optimistic about changing the world despite evidence to the contrary. She'd walked past it twice already, chickening out both times. You can do this, she muttered to herself. You left Victor. You can handle a job interview. Except leaving Victor had been about survival. This was about rebuilding, and rebuilding meant admitting how much she'd destroyed. She pulled open the door before she could change her mind again. The reception area smelled like old coffee and photocopier ink. Behind the desk sat Marcus, not her Adrian's Marcus, a different one, who'd been the office manager since before Lena had started working here 4 years ago. He looked up and his eyes went wide. Holy shit! Lena? Hi, Marcus. I heard you were getting married to some fancy lawyer, living the dream. He said it without irony, which somehow made it worse. Yeah, well, dreams change. She shifted her bag on her shoulder. Is Rachel available? I have an appointment. She's expecting you. Go on back. Lena walked down the familiar hallway, past familiar doors, toward Rachel's office at the end. She'd worked here for 3 years, had loved this place despite the chaos and the impossible workload and the salary that barely covered rent. And then Victor had convinced her it was beneath her, that she could do better, that staying here was settling. She knocked on Rachel's door. Come in. Rachel looked exactly the same, 50-something, gray hair and a messy bun, glasses on a chain around her neck, wearing a cardigan that had definitely seen better days. She glanced up from her computer and broke into a genuine smile. Lena Carter. I was starting to think you were a myth. Hi, Rachel. Sit, please. You want coffee? It's terrible, but it's caffeinated. I'm good. Thanks. Lena sat in the same chair she'd sat in 100 times before, back when she'd had a purpose beyond making herself acceptable to someone else's standards. Rachel studied her for a moment. So, your email was vague, said you were interested in opportunities here. I'm guessing there's a story. There's definitely a story. Want to tell it? Lena had practiced this in Maya's bathroom mirror that morning, had prepared a professional explanation about life changes and career realignment and pursuing her passion again. But sitting across from Rachel, who'd once covered for her when she'd cried in the supply closet over a case that had gone badly, who'd fought the board to give her a raise she desperately needed, who'd actually given a shit about her as a person, the practiced speech disappeared. I left my fiancé 3 weeks ago, Lena said, the one I quit to be with. Turns out he was slowly destroying me and I was too deep in it to notice. I've been living with a friend, trying to figure out who I am without someone telling me. And I need a job. I need purpose. I need to remember what it feels like to do something that matters. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned back in her chair. Well, that's the most honest opening I've heard in years. I'm done pretending things are fine when they're not. Good. Because I'm going to be honest with you too. Rachel pulled off her glasses. I'd hire you back in a heartbeat. You were one of the best caseworkers we've ever had. Smart, dedicated, actually gave a damn about the people we serve. But Lena, I can't pay you anything close to what you probably got used to. I don't care about money right now. I care about not feeling useless. The hours are long. The work is heartbreaking. You'll deal with people at their absolute worst, traumatized, desperate, sometimes violent. You'll fight bureaucracy that doesn't want to help them. You'll lose cases that should have been won. It will wreck you on a regular basis. I know. I remember. Do you? Because you've been gone for 2 years. A lot changes in 2 years. Lena thought about the past 3 weeks. The therapy sessions with Diana, where she'd had to confront exactly how much of herself she'd given away. The panic attacks that came at random moments. In grocery stores, on the subway, once in the middle of a conversation with Maya about nothing important. The night she'd lie awake convinced she'd made a catastrophic mistake by leaving Victor. I've changed too, Lena said. I'm not the same person who left here. I'm messier, more damaged, but I also know what it's like to feel trapped in a situation you can't escape. To have everyone tell you you're fine when you're drowning. I think that might make me better at this job, not worse. Rachel studied her. You're serious, completely. What about your fiancé? Ex-fiancé. Is he going to be a problem? He might try to be, but I'm handling it. Handling it how? Lena thought about the restraining order Diana had helped her file after Victor had shown up at Maya's building twice. About the lawyer Claire had found who specialized in harassment cases. About the boundaries she'd drawn and was learning, slowly, to defend. I have legal support and a therapist, and friends who actually believe me when I say something's wrong. I'm not alone anymore. That makes a difference. Rachel was quiet, considering. Then she smiled. When can you start? Are you serious? I'm desperate for good people, Lena, and you were always good people. Whatever happened with your ex, that doesn't change the fact that you're exactly what we need here. So yeah, I'm serious. When can you start? Lena felt something crack open in her chest. Not breaking. Opening, like a door she'd thought was permanently sealed, suddenly revealing light on the other side. Monday? She managed. Monday works. Same role you had before. Different clients, same chaos. Welcome back. They shook hands. Lena walked out of Rachel's office feeling like she'd just reclaimed a piece of herself she'd thought was lost forever. Marcus looked up as she passed. You're smiling. That mean what I think it means? I start Monday. Damn. The prodigal daughter returns. We should get drinks to celebrate. Yeah, maybe. Let me get through my first week without a breakdown first. She walked out of the building into cold afternoon air and pulled out her phone. She had a text from Adrian. How'd it go? He'd been checking in regularly since that first phone call. Never pushy, never demanding, just there. She still didn't entirely understand why he cared, but she'd stopped questioning it. Sometimes people just helped because they could. She typed back, I got the job. His response was immediate. That's incredible. Proud of you. 2 words that Victor had never said. Not once in 2 years. Lena was halfway back to Maya's apartment when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Lena Carter? A man's voice, official sounding. Yes? This is Detective Chen with the City Police Department. I'm calling regarding the complaint you filed against Victor Hale. Lena's stomach dropped. Is everything okay? That depends on your definition of okay. Mr. Hale was picked up this morning after violating the restraining order. He was found outside your friend's building, 3rd time in 2 weeks. Oh my God. He's being held pending a hearing. I need you to come down and make a formal statement. Can you do that? Lena found a bench and sat down before her legs gave out. Yes? When? Tomorrow morning work? 9 a.m.? I'll be there. The call ended. Lena sat there staring at her phone, trying to process what she'd just heard. Victor had been arrested. Actually arrested. The man who'd spent 2 years convincing her that he was always in control, always right, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He'd lost control. Over her. She called Diana immediately. I heard, Diana said before Lena could speak. Detective Chen called me too. Are you okay? I don't know. I think so. He can't get to me now, right? If he's in custody, he'll probably make bail. But the violation of the restraining order strengthens your case. This is good, Lena. It shows a pattern of harassment. It doesn't feel good. It feels scary. Scary is normal, but you're safe. You have protection, and you're not alone in this. After the call, Lena just sat on the bench for a while, watching the city move around her. People going to jobs, meeting friends, living lives that probably had their own complications but looked simple from the outside. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Claire called. She heard about Victor. Are you okay? Do you need me to come get you? Lena smiled despite everything. 3 weeks ago, she'd had no one. Now she had people checking on her, worrying about her, ready to show up when she needed them. She typed back, I'm okay. On my way home. I got the job. Maya's response was immediate and enthusiastic. Shut up. That's amazing. We're celebrating tonight. Lena walked the rest of the way to Maya's apartment feeling strange. Not happy, exactly. Not relieved, but something closer to hopeful than she'd felt in years. That evening, Maya ordered Chinese food and Claire showed up with wine and Adrian came by with flowers, which made everyone raise their eyebrows until he explained that his neighbor had too many from her garden and was giving them away. They sat in Maya's tiny living room, eating dumplings straight from the containers, and for the first time since leaving Victor, Lena felt like maybe she could actually do this, build a new life, become someone she recognized. Tell me about the job, Claire said. What will you be doing? Casework with families in crisis, helping them navigate social services, find housing, access resources, same thing I did before. That's important work. It is. It's also exhausting and heartbreaking and pays almost nothing. But it's mine. It's something I chose because I wanted it, not because someone told me I should want it. Adrian raised his glass. To choosing things for yourself. To choosing things for yourself, they echoed. Later, after Claire had left and Maya had gone to bed, Adrian and Lena sat on the apartment's small balcony watching the city lights. You doing okay? Adrian asked. Really? I don't know. I got a job I'm excited about. Victor got arrested. I should feel victorious or relieved or something. Instead, I just feel tired. That's because recovery isn't linear. You're going to have good days and shit days and days where you can't tell the difference. That's normal. When does it stop being hard? It doesn't stop being hard. It just becomes a different kind of hard. The heart of building instead of the heart of surviving. Lena was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you keep checking on me? You don't owe me anything. We barely know each other. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the lights. When I left Marcus, I spent 6 months convinced I'd made the worst mistake of my life. I'd wake up every morning and have to actively choose not to call him, not to apologize, not to go back. And some days I barely made that choice. I was hanging on by my fingernails. What changed? Time, therapy, distance. Eventually I started remembering who I was before him, started building a life that was actually mine, and I realized that the person I'd been with Marcus, that wasn't me. That was a performance, a survival mechanism. The real me had been buried so deep I'd almost forgotten they existed. How long did it take? A couple of years before I felt like myself again. And even now, I sometimes catch myself doing things his way instead of my way. It's like muscle memory. You have to retrain yourself to make choices based on what you want instead of what someone else would approve of. That's terrifying. It is, but it's also the only way to actually live instead of just existing. Lena thought about that, about the difference between living and existing. She'd been existing for 2 years, maybe longer. Thank you, she said, for seeing me that night, for saying something when you could have just minded your own business. You would have found your way out eventually. I just happened to be there when you were ready to see it. You think so? I know so, because the Lena who ordered that chocolate soufflé, she was already fighting back. She just needed someone to tell her it was okay to fight. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Adrian stood up. I should go. You've got a big day tomorrow with the police statement. Yeah. You want company for the station? Maya's coming with me, but thank you. Adrian nodded, started to leave, then turned back. Lena, one more thing. What? You're going to be okay. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're going to be okay. After he left, Lena sat on the balcony for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 3 weeks. About how much had changed and how much still felt impossibly hard. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she'd blocked weeks ago, but that had somehow gotten through. Victor, you've ruined everything. My reputation, my career, my life. I hope you're happy. Lena stared at the message. 3 weeks ago, it would have destroyed her, would have sent her into a spiral of guilt and self-doubt. Now she just felt tired. She typed back, I didn't ruin your life, Victor. I just stopped letting you ruin mine. Then she blocked the number again and went inside. The next morning, Lena sat in a sterile room at the police station, giving her statement to Detective Chen while Maya waited outside. She told him everything, the gradual isolation, the constant criticism, the way Victor had shown up at Maya's building 3 times despite the restraining order. He never threatened you physically? Detective Chen asked. No, but he didn't have to. He made it clear that leaving him would ruin me, that I was nothing without him. That's a different kind of threat. And you believe he's dangerous? Lena thought about Victor's controlled rage when she'd left, the cold certainty in his voice when he'd promised she'd regret it. I believe he's someone who can't handle losing control, and I don't know what he'll do now that he's lost it completely. So yeah, I think he's dangerous. Detective Chen nodded and took notes. We're going to recommend he stay away from you as a condition of bail. If he violates it again, he'll be looking at jail time. In the meantime, I'd suggest varying your routine. Don't go places alone if you can help it. Let people know where you are. I'm already doing that. Good. Stay smart. Guys like this, they don't let go easily. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Victor made bail within 24 hours, which didn't surprise Lena. He had money, connections, lawyers who could make problems disappear. But this problem wasn't disappearing. She showed up to the hearing with Claire, Maya, and a folder full of documentation Diana had helped her compile. Emails, texts, photos of Victor waiting outside Maya's building. A timeline of his escalating behavior. Victor was there with his lawyer, looking every bit the successful professional being wrongly accused. He didn't look at Lena once during the entire proceeding. The judge reviewed the evidence, listened to both sides, and ruled that the restraining order would remain in place with stricter conditions. Victor was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from Lena at all times and prohibited from any form of contact. His lawyer argued. The judge wasn't interested. Mr. Hale, I'm going to be very clear, the judge said. You are a successful attorney. You understand how the law works. If you violate this order again, you will be held in contempt. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Victor's voice was perfectly controlled, but Lena could see the rage simmering underneath. She'd spent 2 years learning to read his micro-expressions. That skill was coming in handy now. As they left the courthouse, Claire put an arm around Lena. You did good in there. I didn't do anything. I just showed up. Showing up is half the battle. Over the next few weeks, Lena fell into a new rhythm. Work at the nonprofit, therapy with Diana, dinners with Maya, and occasional coffee with Adrian. She was rebuilding her life piece by piece, and some days it actually felt possible. The work was exactly as hard as Rachel had warned. Lena dealt with domestic violence survivors, refugees, families on the edge of homelessness, people whose lives had been shattered and who were trying desperately to put the pieces back together. She understood them in a way she never could have before Victor. One afternoon, she was meeting with a woman named Sarah who'd left her husband after 15 years of emotional abuse. Sarah sat across from Lena's desk, wringing her hands, second-guessing everything. Maybe I'm overreacting, Sarah said for the 3rd time. He never hit me. He made me feel small, stupid, like I couldn't do anything right. That's abuse, Lena said gently. It doesn't have to leave bruises to be real. But what if I'm wrong? What if I just threw away a marriage over nothing? Lena recognized that doubt, had felt it herself countless times. Sarah, you're not wrong. Your feelings are valid, and leaving took incredible courage. Don't let anyone, including yourself, minimize that. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. How do you know it gets better? Everyone keeps telling me it gets better, but right now it just feels impossible. Because I left someone like your husband 3 months ago. And yeah, it's hard. Some days it's really fucking hard. But I'm not disappearing anymore. I'm not making myself smaller to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. That's worth the hard days. Sarah nodded slowly. Thank you for being honest. Everyone else just gives me platitudes. Platitudes don't help. The truth helps, even when it's ugly. After Sarah left, Lena sat at her desk and felt something settle into place. This was what she was supposed to be doing. Not attending charity galas or learning which fork to use or making herself acceptable to Victor's colleagues. This. Helping people who were where she'd been. Making them feel less alone. That evening, Adrian called. You busy? Just leaving work. Why? I have something to show you. Can you meet me at the coffee shop? The one where we first talked? That's cryptic. Just trust me. 20 minutes later, Lena walked into the coffee shop and found Adrian sitting at the same corner table. He had a folder in front of him. What's this? She asked, sitting down. Information. He slid the folder across to her. About Victor. Lena stared at it. What kind of information? The kind you need to know. Open it. She opened the folder. Inside were printouts, legal documents, news articles, screenshots of social media posts. She scanned them quickly, her heart starting to pound. He's been doing this to other people, she said slowly. There are 3 other women here who filed complaints against him. Harassment, stalking. One got a restraining order 2 years ago. Before he met you, Adrian confirmed. I had a friend do some digging, discreetly. Victor has a pattern. You weren't his first victim. You probably won't be his last unless someone stops him. Lena felt sick. Why didn't any of this come up before, when I was with him? Because he's good at covering his tracks. Good at making it look like the women were unstable or vindictive. Good at using his position and reputation to discredit anyone who speaks up. What am I supposed to do with this? Whatever you want. Give it to your lawyer. Give it to the detective. Use it to protect yourself. Or don't. It's your choice. I just thought you should know you're not crazy. You're not the problem. He's the problem, and he's been the problem for a long time. Lena flipped through the pages, reading stories that could have been her own. Different details, same pattern. The gradual isolation, the criticism masked as concern, the escalation after they tried to leave. This one, she said, pointing to an article. Jessica Morton. She's a lawyer now, at a firm downtown. You want to talk to her? I don't know, maybe? Lena closed the folder. This is a lot to process. Take your time. No pressure. They sat in silence for a while. Lena sipped her coffee and tried to figure out how she felt about this information. Part of her was relieved, more evidence that she wasn't wrong, that Victor really was dangerous. Part of her was horrified that other women had gone through this, that she might have been able to prevent it if she'd known. Thank you, she said finally, for digging this up, for giving me the choice about what to do with it. That's what we do, right? Give each other choices when someone tried to take them all away. A week later, Lena sat in a different coffee shop across from Jessica Morton. Jessica was 40, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from surviving something terrible and choosing to thrive anyway. So you're Victor's latest victim, Jessica said without preamble. Ex-fiancé technically, but yeah, I guess I am. How long did it take you to leave? 2 years, Jessica nodded. Took me 3. And another year after that to stop doubting myself. Was it the same? The control, the criticism, the making you feel crazy? Every single time I tried to have an opinion that differed from his, he'd explain why I was wrong. And he was so calm about it, so rational, that I started believing him, started thinking my instincts were broken. That's exactly what happened to me. It's what he does. It's not personal. It's just his pattern. He finds women who are kind, who want to believe the best in people, and he slowly erodes their sense of self until they're completely dependent on him. Lena felt validation and horror in equal measure. I filed a police report, got a restraining order, but I keep wondering if it's enough. If he'll just move on to the next person. He will. Unless we stop him. How? Jessica leaned forward. I've been talking to the other women, the ones who got away. We're considering a civil suit, pattern of behavior, emotional abuse, harassment. It won't put him in jail, but it might damage his reputation enough that he thinks twice before doing it again. You want me to join the suit? I want you to consider it. No pressure. But the more of us who speak up, the harder it is for him to dismiss us as vindictive exes. We become a pattern, evidence, truth. Lena thought about Sarah, sitting in her office, second-guessing her decision to leave. Thought about all the women who might meet Victor next, who might not escape. "I'll do it," she said. "You're sure? It won't be easy. He'll fight back. He'll try to discredit you. Let him try. I'm not the person who was too scared to order dessert anymore. I'm the person who walked away. And I'm not going back to being silent." Jessica smiled. "Good. Because we need people who are ready to fight." Over the next month, Lena worked with Jessica and 2 other women to build their case. It was exhausting and triggering and forced her to relive things she'd rather forget. But it was also empowering in a way she'd never expected. She wasn't alone. She'd never been alone. Victor had made her feel isolated, but there were others who understood, who believed her, who were ready to stand with her. The lawsuit was filed on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, the legal community was buzzing about it. Victor's firm issued a statement denying everything. His lawyer called the women disgruntled former partners seeking attention. But the evidence was solid. Emails, texts, testimony from friends and family who'd watched these women change. Medical records showing stress-related illness, restraining orders, police reports. Victor couldn't explain all of it away. 3 weeks later, Victor's firm quietly asked him to take a leave of absence while they investigated the allegations. It wasn't a win, exactly, but it was something, and for Lena, it was enough. She was sitting in her small office at the nonprofit when Adrian called. "Did you see the news?" he asked. "About Victor's firm?" "Yeah, I saw." "How do you feel?" "Tired, relieved, sad that it took 4 women speaking up to be taken seriously. But mostly, I feel free, like I can finally breathe without looking over my shoulder." "That's good. That's really good." There was something in his voice, something Lena couldn't quite place. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm fine, I'm proud of you. What you did took courage." "I had help, a lot of help." "Yeah, but you're the one who chose to fight. That matters." After the call ended, Lena sat at her desk and looked around her small office. It wasn't much, cramped, outdated, with a window that didn't quite close properly. But it was hers. She'd earned it, chosen it, built it with her own decisions instead of someone else's expectations. That evening, she met Maya, Claire, and Adrian for dinner at a small Italian place that served wine in mismatched glasses and had checkered tablecloths that had seen better days. "To Lena," Claire said, raising her glass, "for being braver than any of us gave her credit for." "I wasn't brave. I was desperate." "Sometimes those are the same thing," Adrian said. They ate pasta and drank too much wine and laughed about stupid things that had nothing to do with Victor or lawsuits or restraining orders. And for the first time in months, Lena felt like she was part of something real instead of performing for an audience. Later, walking back to Maya's apartment, Lena and Adrian fell into step together while Maya and Claire walked ahead, arguing about something neither of them actually cared about. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said. "Always." "Well, that night at the restaurant, why were you really watching me? And don't say you just recognized the dynamic. There was something else." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "You reminded me of someone." "Who?" "Me. 3 years ago. Sitting across from Marcus, making myself smaller with every breath, convinced that if I just tried harder, he'd love me the way I needed to be loved." He glanced at her. "I saw you doing the same thing, and I couldn't just walk away without saying something, even though it wasn't your business." "Yeah, even though." He smiled slightly. "Sometimes the right thing to do is none of your business." "I'm glad you made it your business." "Me too." They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lena stopped. "Adrian?" "Yeah?" "I don't know how to thank you for everything. For seeing me when I'd stopped seeing myself. For standing next to me while I figured out how to fight back. For being, I don't know, a friend when I needed one. You don't have to thank me. I do, though, because you didn't have to help me. You chose to. And that choice changed my life." Adrian looked at her for a long moment. "You changed your own life, Lena. I just reminded you that you could." 6 months after leaving Victor, Lena stood in front of her own apartment, a tiny studio that Maya had helped her find, that she'd furnished with secondhand furniture and plants she was learning not to kill. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She had a job she cared about, friends who actually knew her, a therapist who'd helped her untangle 2 years of manipulation, a life that belonged to her instead of someone else. Some days were still hard. She still had moments where she doubted herself, where Victor's voice in her head told her she'd made a mistake. But those moments were getting rarer, quieter, easier to dismiss. She was learning to trust herself again, to make choices based on what she wanted instead of what someone else would approve of, to take up space instead of making herself smaller. It was messy and imperfect and sometimes terrifying. It was also the freest she'd ever been. Her phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. "Coffee tomorrow. I have news." She smiled and typed back, "Only if I get to choose where we go. Deal. Your choice matters." And somehow those 3 words meant more than any grand declaration ever could. Because her choice did matter. Her voice mattered. She mattered. Not because someone told her she did, but because she'd finally learned to believe it herself. Lena looked around her small apartment, at the green walls she'd painted herself, at the books she'd bought because she wanted to read them, at the evidence of a life she was building one choice at a time. She'd forgotten her worth for a while, let someone convince her she was nothing without their guidance. But she'd remembered, slowly, painfully, with help from people who'd refused to let her stay invisible. And now, standing in her own space, making her own choices, living her own life, she finally understood what freedom tasted like. It tasted like chocolate souffle. It tasted like defiance. It tasted like coming home to herself after years of being lost. And it was better than anything she could have imagined.